What we witnessed in the last panel discussion was a very diverse, eclectic, and disparate kind of a conversation where the bottom line is that we announced that India is the fintech hub for the world. And what we really need is a sandbox for digital banking. These were the key takeaways. Ladies and gentlemen, you all are at the Global Fintech Fest, which is one of the most revered, respected, and one of the largest fintech festivals, which basically explains and poises to bring India's promise in a sustainable, inclusive, and affordable fintech global leadership in the world. That's the premise. And to enable the same, we also have a miscellany of booths, expos, Finclusion labs outside. So do make time to visit them. Up next, we have a very special address coming up. I'll be talking about this address in a few moments from now. But for now, I would like to thank our event partners who've really played a pivotal role in bringing this event and translating it into a reality, beginning with our platinum partner, Google Pay, PhonePe, Visa, M2P Fintech, MasterCard, and Falcon, and also our registrational partner, Entity Data Payment Services. So with this context, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you some amount of idea, every day in India, over 28 crore digital transactions are happening. With fintech becoming mainstream, one of the questions that occupies the minds of a lot of business owners, corporates, is the security and IT around it. And that's the topic, that's the realm and space that we will be covering in our next address, which is in a very different format. The topic that we are going to be covering is creating robust IT infrastructure and systems for technology adoption in India. And we have two mavericks coming and addressing us all in a few moments from now. But before that, I'd like to also bring to your attention, a lot of people have been asking us which speakers are in which ballroom, what is the schedule like. Now, if you want the answer at tip of your fingers, please download this app called the Global Fintech Fest on your Android phone or on your Play Store and get access to the entire agenda, the updated one too, because the agenda also undergoes a lot of dynamic changes. So please make sure that you have the agenda with you to ensure you're updated and are keeping abreast with the latest updates happening at the Global Fintech Fest. So on this note, I think we are ready to begin. All right, like I said, we are talking about a very relevant, promising, and compelling question, which is about creating a robust IT architecture and systems for technology adoption in India, where the population, the scale, scope, complexity is so dense. And for this, we have an esteemed speaker with us today. Can we give a huge round of applause for Shri Ponnuraj IAS, Secretary of IT E-Governance, Karnataka. And joining him on stage, I also have with me Ms. Shweta Rajpal Kohli, Chief Public Policy Officer, Sequoia Capital. So I have both the speakers with us. All right. On this note, Shri Ponnuraj sir, can I request you to address us all? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, madam. I'm here to present before you something what the Karnataka government has been trying to do to facilitate the farmers. So I would like to take you people away from the hustles of Mumbai to our countryside, and then what we are trying to do about people who toil there, and then how we can make their life a little easier. Now, if you talk about rural side and agriculture, we have farmers and then a lot of stakeholders who interact with farmers. But in the whole ecosystem, if you look at, the farmers really don't place a major role, and they have to be found in the ecosystem which we build for our rural side and agriculture. There are many stakeholders who play a key role, but then farmers do find hardly any place around that. So, what do we do about that? Now, you all know that the banking system, led by RBI, NABARD, and government as well, prescribe that the priority sector has to be a focus area. But when we talk about priority sector, what is the priority and whose priority it is? Is it bank's priority or is it government's priority? Actually speaking, they are priorities set by RBI and NABARD, not by the system per se. And the priority itself comes because there is no priority for them. Otherwise, it would not have been mandated. Rather, it would have been there by practice. So now, if you look at reasons why that kind of priorities setting has to be given, is because if you look at the farmers, there are systems being built around the farmers. There are a lot of stakeholders from government side, stakeholders from the banking side, stakeholders from various other aspects of agricultural activities are concerned. Now, if you look at the government system itself, about 8 to 10 departments do deal with farmers and agricultural systems. Now, if you look at these stakeholders, both from bank as well as from the government side, if you look at what kind of systems they have done for this farming sector or agricultural, it could be agricultural credit, or it could be agricultural marketing, or it could be agricultural inputs. If you look at, it's a kind of a maze which you will have to wave through if you are to understand. If this is the maze we are talking about, even a highly educated, capable guy would find it difficult to wave through. And what will happen to a guy who is either illiterate or a semi-literate, who is day to day involved in agricultural activities, and their exposure level is at the bottommost system, and so he would find it very difficult to wave through the systems which we have built for agriculture and allied activities. Now, if you look at the farmer, whether he will have any support system, at least to take advantage of these systems. In fact, you all would know and agree that the farmer is the first batsman as well as the last batsman also, because there is no one to help him, and but for himself he has to toil hard and then make the way through. And if you look at the farmer's bargaining power, in terms of selling their produce after they produce the crops, many a times the prices fluctuate so much that ultimately sometimes he even has to throw it on the roads. That's the way the things happen. And even access to the credit, access to input subsidies, equipments, they are all, in a way, kind of farmers are put in a disadvantageous position. And when it comes to the procurement of the produce by government agencies as well as by traders, this you all know the system is not so perfect that a farmer can take advantage of it. Thus, all these lead to a price spread. A price spread is what the price which a consumer pays and what the price which the farmer receives, the difference between these two. If you look at in that, there are many intermediaries, and the farmer gets the least pie in that share. So now, if you look at the systems what governments have built or even the banks have built, where the farmer has to interact so that he would be able to at least have access to the systems of credit, systems of marketing, systems of agricultural input subsidies and stuff like that. Most of them go through this classical method wherein the applications, documents, verifications, and then elimination of ineligible beneficiaries and that stuff like that. In that, whole system, the farmer completely loses out, and finally the priority for the farmer gets completely negated. Now, what do we do for the farmers? So, government of Karnataka thought about these questions. So they actually started building systems. So the first thing what they did was to build a digital land record system, which will have details on land ownership and each of the farmers who cultivate crops. So this was the first system built way back in 2001 itself. So it's about 22 years now in Karnataka we have digital land record system. Then the government came up with crop survey system, so that we keep updating the land records with the crops which are being grown on the fields of the farmers. And then also government came up with crop insurance system, so that farmers would be protected against the vagaries of monsoon or any calamities, and then the farmer going through a distress. So, then government of Karnataka also built Karnataka GIS system, so that we can put the things together and try to provide certain services in a better way than what we used to provide earlier. Then finally the system of fruits, which is farmers unique ID system, which was created so that the system would be able to link each and every land parcel in the state to the farmers in the state uniquely, and then also provide the data on the farmers and then farming in a big way, which can be made use of by various stakeholders, especially financial institutions like banks and the fintechs. Then also government of Karnataka came out with another system which is called as Kutumba, which is a social registry in which the details of each family members residing in Karnataka and a lot of attributes, personal and also the educational qualifications, the profession and the income levels, all those details are built in the Kutumba system, so that we would be able to relate the land and people and crops to one single system to make use of these systems for the credit flow, as well as for input subsidies, as well as for linking them to the market. So that is when the government also came up with national agricultural marketing, as well as in Karnataka we have equivalent of that called as REM. So these are the systems which we have built so far from government side. Now why I'm here before all of you is that, can we join hands together? How do we make these systems which has been put in place by government of Karnataka and leverage that with the systems which are existing outside the government system, making use of the financial institutions, the technology which is available with financial institutions, the systems which are available with financial institutions, as well as with fintech companies, and then private sector can join hands together to make the farmers and then farming better system in the days to come. Now I'll just touch upon few points about what fruits is and how it's going to help agricultural lending as well as agricultural marketing, so that the plight of the farmers can be improved. Now the fruit system is called as, it's an abbreviation of Farmer Registration and Unified Beneficiary Information System, wherein we have unique ID for each of the farmers in the state, and each of the farmers are linked to the land parcels which they hold in the state of Karnataka. Now this ID also includes the farmers who do not have the lands but do get involved in agricultural and allied activities like animal husbandry or even fishing, and all the farmers who are in the primary sector or agricultural and allied sector are finding place in this database system. Now if we talk about what these fruits contain, as far as the details or the data about farmers is concerned, the first set is about personal details, about name, family members, and the details like that. And then the lands held by each of the farmers, starting from the land parcel ID number to the extent of the land which is held by the farmer and stuff like that. And we also pinpoint the land parcel held by the person by by having the digitized maps and georeferenced map in the entire state. And also we have the crop details, the crops grown by the farmers in the field, which is a very very dynamic data, because every year, every season, the farmer grows a new crop. So this is also getting captured here dynamically. It is up to date in a year. 3 times we keep updating that. We also have details on soil health data, and we also have weather data related to the farmer about for each of the village. We customize it and then deliver the weather data to the farmers. And we also have details which are relating to the loans availed and subsidies given, other benefits provided to the farmers, all at one place, so that this can actually become an assets and liabilities set for the farmers. Now, how do we build this system? How do we keep this system up to date? By just having data on farmers at a particular point of time is not going to help, and it has to be connected. It has to remain updated all the time. So what we do is that we connect this fruits system to various dynamic systems which we have built in Karnataka. One is that land record system, which is the Bhumi. Then we have GIS system. We have a crop survey system. Then we have caste and income details coming from the revenue department. We also have the Kutumba database. We also have KSN DMC weather data. And then we link this system to the banking financial sector through the NPCI is DBT mechanism. So, and on the right side, if you look at the systems which are right now actively using this fruit system for various schemes to be delivered to the farmers, starting with procurement in terms of minimum support price registration, and then procurement, as well as crop insurance, and then also incentive for the milk cows, and then also incentives for the promotion of horticultural crops and adoption of high-tech practices in horticulture aspect, and then also linking it to the banks. So these are the systems which are revolving around the fruit system. Now, how do we keep this data up to date? Is one of the main system we have built for that is crop survey. The crop survey is done every year to update the kind of crop grown by a farmer on each land parcel in the state. Now, this takes about 30,000 local youths to visit 200 lakh fields, land parcels every season. 3 times a year it is done. And when they go there, they capture the photograph, and they also have they also capture the geo coordinates, so that we would be able to confirm that the crop which is grown has been captured photographically, as well as by name it is captured, and that data gets into the fruit system as well as it gets into the land record system, so that we would be able to provide this wealth of data to the banks, as well as for the financial intermediaries who will be able to make use of it for lending purpose. So I'll just showcase few cases of how this fruits has actually started fruitioning, and then helping the farmers in a small way. Now, fruits data as of now is being used by Government of Karnataka for policy making, and in fact Government of India wants to make use of this in a big way for estimating the crop productivity, as well as to change the policies, domestic market intervention, as well as export import no regulation, so that the government would be able to play an active role in providing a better scenario market system for the farmers. So that's the first use which fruits is being put into by state government as well as by the central government. Now, central government, having looked at this initiative in Karnataka, wants this system to be implemented in the rest of India. So now, probably in another 6 months to 1 year, rest of the states also would be falling in place and will be picking up the system. And we are then using this fruit system for making the crop loan or agricultural credit or rural credit into a kind of completely paperless and contactless system. I would be touching upon it a little more in detail in the next slides. Then we also use this fruits data and Kutumba data what we have in Karnataka in combination with DBT to provide various benefits as well as subsidies to the farmers to the directly to the bank account without taking any application, any documents or any verification, straight away putting it into their bank account. And this fruit system also is being used for streamlining the government procurement system. I'm sure all of you would have heard about a lot of protests happening in Punjab and Haryana about the procurement by government system. Now this fruit system is going to give complete streamlined process for procurement, wherein the government would be able to decide what kind of crops they would produces they will procure and what would be the quantum, and straight away from the farmer it is to be picked up. So that level we have already made it possible here. Then using this fruit system, now we are trying to link it to the markets. So that is where I would actually request all of you to join hands with us so that we would be able to make this system blossom a little more, and then bear little more fruits for the farmers and for the government as well as for all of us together. Now, one way in which we have used this fruit system to streamline this procurement, direct government procurement process, is that if you can look at on the left hand side, before the fruit system was introduced, it was a complete unorganized kind of mess. So through which the government used to procure the produces from the farmers after announcing the minimum support price. Now, after introducing this fruit system, you can look at on the right hand side panel, it is just 3 steps. Straight away the farmer would be able to walk into the procurement centers, and the farmer will have to only say the Aadhaar number. The rest of the process is automatically verified, and the produce is picked up from the farmer, and the payment straight gets into the bank account of the farmer. So this is the way we could simplify the government procurement system. Now, then let me come to an important and a relevant topic for this occasion, wherein we all know that agricultural lending is a kind of process which needs lot of coding, lot of emphasis to be given so that the desired level of credit is provided to the farmers. Now, if you look at the way in which it is done, complicated applications will have to be filled by the farmers who are either illiterate or semi-literate, and they need to provide at least 4 to 5 documents which needs to be procured from various government offices. And once they are provided, the banking system will have to depend on the manual verification of those documents to arrive at whether a farmer can be sanctioned loan or not. And largely that process will be mostly a subjective decision making rather than data driven objective decision making. So I always see it as more of documentation rather than loan appraisal itself. I mean, there absolutely loan appraisal doesn't happen, but just a documentation happens. So then most of the time the loan sanction gets delayed and it's not timely. And also the farmers are made to run around to different government offices and banks, and then the result is that with all this also cross lending and over lending also happens to few people, and no lending happens to many people. So this also gets linked to the interest subvention which is given by government in a big way. The state government gives 1,700 crores, and I was told that central government gives about 20,000 crores in a year. And how do we channelize that so that it reaches to the right kind of beneficiaries and farmers? So that's why we have built a system in which I would just like to highlight that we have tried to make the process completely paperless and contactless. Starting from a farmer wanting to ask for a loan from a particular bank and filling up the application, and then e-signing the application, then pushing that application to the desired bank, and then the bank accessing the land details as well as the crops details to make up their mind, and then apply a scale of finance to decide what kind of loan they would like to sanction and what would be the quantum of the loan they would like to sanction. So once the loan is sanctioned, then the documentation automatically happening in the government system, so that the bankers are able to comply with the norms, as well as the credit dispersal can straight away happen without having to have a paper system at all. So straight away it can be end-to-end paperless. This system we have already started doing it, and the government side we have almost done it. And on the banker side, CBS will have to get integrated. We have done a workaround wherein we provide the data and they consume it in CBS. But now in the pilot, what we are doing with Union Bank of India and the fintech called as What's Loan. Union Bank of India and What's Loan, they are joining hands with us to completely automate the process of rural credit. So now, starting from farmer choosing a bank, farmer asking for a particular crop loan amount, and then automatically fetching the data of the farmer, and then loan appraisal using a pre-decided logic, which will be basically data-driven decision making by the bank side by integrating fruit system with the CBS system of banks, and then dispersal also, and charge creation and mortgage, that also will be done automatically through the sub-register office, as well as land records entry happening through the automatic method. So finally the banks will be only looking at how many farmers have chosen and how many farmers have been sanctioned without any manual interface. So this is a system which we have already devised, and Union Bank of India and What's Loan are working with us. Maybe in a month's time we should be able to start dispersing the credit to the farmers using this paperless and contactless system. I am saying that it will be just a 3-click away for a farmer to do, which will be very helpful for the farmers to get connected to. Now, this we are doing a pilot with Union Bank of India. Then today afternoon we have interaction with NABARD, wherein we are trying to build a common platform so that every bank, rural banks, cooperative societies can hook on to our system and NABARD's platform, so that all of them would be able to provide this contactless and paperless agricultural credit flow to the farmers. And you all know that RRBs and PACs play a major role. About 30-40% of the credit to the agriculture sector goes from these two institutions. So that we are trying to target. Maybe a month or two we should be able to provide this system for the banks as well as for the cooperative societies, and then connecting them with the farmers. Now still this leaves out another 50% of the credit flow which happens to the farmers, which is from the informal sector. Now informal sector, if you look at, I'm sure all of you would have an idea that the interest rate for a farmer in the informal credit market is ranging anywhere between 24% to 36%. We talk about 5%, 8% interest subvention and whatnot, but the farmer, to the extent about 50% of the credit flow into the farming system happens at around 25 to 30% interest rates. That's the prevailing condition. Now, how do we come together? Government, banks, and private sector, NBFCs, and the fintechs, and try to bridge this gap between this 4-5% in formal lending route to between formal lending route and the informal lending route, and that will help farmer in a big way if you're able to bridge this gap. But there are a lot of hurdles. One of the hurdle would be to connect these two systems through digital mechanisms, so that we would be able to remove certain hurdles which exist in the process of loan appraisal, as well as security creation, and then trusting the farmers that they would be able to repay. Now, there are many mechanisms like farmer producer organization, and then tie up with procurement agencies, and then facilitating the market mechanism to help the farmer in accessing the credit as well. So these are the systems which we have been able to lay our hands on. Now, I would like to open the floor for this forum, wherein we can actually look at how we can use this fruit system to streamline and look at the procurement of produce by linking the farmers to the market through a private sector procurement, through a direct procurement by the companies like Mo Store, Big Basket, all of them. How do they straight away get into the procurement and then reduce this price spread, and how the fintech companies can bring the farmers and the market together and try to reduce the price spread and make the farmers' life little more better. And how do we link the farmers to the input supply companies, as well as and credit from them or support from them. And finally, how do we link this fruit system to a contract farming? Contract farming is quite prevalent in sectors like poultry and also the animal husbandry side, but it's almost at a nascent stage in crops. So how do we leverage this fruit system and bring this private sector to the contract farming in such a way that it is a win-win situation for both private sector as well as for the farmers, which can happen through linking them using FPOs or directly as well. And then final point which I would like to touch upon is that if we have to transform our agriculture, probably corporate sector also will have to play a role. And but whenever we talk about corporate sector entering into agriculture, always there is a question of how do we balance equity and how do we balance this bargaining power of the farmer against the corporate sector. Probably this fruit system can come in the middle and try to balance these two, so that the investment from the private sector can flow into the agriculture sector, and then probably look at a bigger mechanization, efficiency in agriculture, and then productivity improvement, all that which can happen. So this fruit system would probably be able to provide better insight for the corporate sector to look at where they would be able to invest, and then find a space where farmers as well as the corporate sector would be able to find a win-win situation. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary. And it's really fascinating to see the Karnataka government, undertaking such major projects, and especially the public-private partnership. The fruit system clearly is an example of how we can marry innovation in the agri-tech sector along with innovation in the fintech sector. And if we could just take that conversation forward, clearly what we've seen with the pandemic is that not only have we seen transformation by way of digital adoption overall, the government's appetite towards digital adoption and transformation has gone up tremendously. You've clearly outlined, areas where fintechs can participate and be a part of this agri-tech journey that the state is bringing forward, Karnataka. Could you share with us also if there are other opportunities where fintechs could explore working together with the government, maybe a regulatory sandbox or similar such opportunities for the fintech sector where they work closely with the government to help unlock some of these amazing transformational changes that you're bringing about?
In fact, apart from the agri stack, what we are trying to build so that we would be able to connect farmers to the banking sector as well as the markets and the marketing system and try to improve their financial situation. We are also looking at transforming the government sector wherein government is looking at modernizing land and property management in the state. The stakeholders would range from anywhere between city governments, the rural panchayats, and then developmental agencies, RERA, and also the private property developers. All of them will have one single system on which government of Karnataka would be able to build a platform and they would be able to provide. In fact, for a long time we have been talking about we have markets for everything. Right? Anything you can name, any product you name, you have a market. But do you have a land market? Now, if you want to look at land market, where is it? Now you have to look up in the the directories and then call up some the real estate agents and then you will have to go. So the market doesn't exist. So we have in Karnataka have been talking about building a land market, property market, TDR market. Right, FAR market, premium FAR market. So these are the products we are trying to build in Karnataka, wherein you will have the real estate developers, property buyers, and also the citizens in a big way coming and playing role, and then financial companies, the venture capital companies or regular banking sector. All of them would be able to find place in this. And we are also adding strength to our system of this land and property management system by bringing in the GIS component. Right. So Karnataka has started building a GIS system wherein we have about 700 layers of information provided. So both system together. We are also having, as I have mentioned in my presentation, we have something called as a Kutumba system wherein it talks about people. So you have system talking about land and property. You have system linking them to the GIS platform, and then you also have data on people. So all these three systems put together open up a lot of opportunities in terms of property development, in terms of converting the government process into smart processes, wherein private sector can play a major role. So that's how we're trying to build.
So that's exciting. I think one you've talked about, of course, is the whole rural credit, agricultural lending space, where you've extensively shared some of the opportunities and also cited a very specific example of where this public-private partnership through a pilot is working, and we're excited to see how that pans out. Second, you've clearly outlined, property management, land records, and digitization of land records as another opportunity. The one thing that's very important for private sector players is to understand how this public-private partnership will work out. And of course, there are challenges both on the government side as well as on the private side. One, of course, being data and access to data. As Secretary Governance, you're someone who can help solve this complex puzzle of how the private sector can work with the government closely and overcome some of the challenges, especially at a time when we still don't have an overall data privacy bill in the country that has been passed or a law that has been passed. Your thoughts on how fintechs as well as private sector startups should approach working with the government given these challenges?
I would thank you for asking me this question because we have already started thinking about it. In fact, even much before Government of India came up with this data privacy policy, we were preparing to publish our own policy and then put in place systems so that we provide this data. See, data today is a new oil, right? It is power. So this data, just if it lies only with the government, if it is only stored, it doesn't result in any synergy. So what we are trying to do is that first thing is that Government of Karnataka is following an open data policy,
right?
Wherein whatever is possible, where it relates to the land, property, or any other assets or any systems, data generated by any systems, we are providing it in a public domain, right? We have something called as KODI, wherein all data which is not related to a personal data is web hosted and it is available in public domain. However, if fintechs will have to make use of it, that itself may not be sufficient, because each individual records can be accessed. But then if you want a bulk data to be analyzed, probably you would need a better access. For that, what we are trying to do is that we are putting in place, there are already companies who are working with us. We sign an MOU wherein if any private company wants to access our data, they would be able to access our data by signing an NDC agreement and MOU, NDC in the form of MOU. Then they will have complete access to the government data, but they must ensure that the use of the data will be with the prior permission of the government for any commercial activities. But any promotional, any research or any product development, we completely give it at a very, very nominal rate, just to make sure that you are going through a system wherein you need to comply with certain standards. So disclosure clauses. So with these two systems put in place, one is that open data policy, wherein it's available in the public, open web. Second system is that MOU route, in which companies can come work with us and we provide complete access to our data, so that they can experiment, they can develop their products, and they would be able to come out with innovations. If I have to mention, in Bangalore Metropolitan Transport Corporation, we try to do this. A few companies have already come out and they have developed bus passes for the citizens on their own, using the BMTC data. Now we are also providing this crop data for many agri fintech companies to develop their own products. Now we are working with this Watts Loan fintech company for developing this end-to-end paperless credit system. So these are the ways in which we are working with the companies. We are welcoming everyone. Whomever wants to work with us, we welcome with open arms.
No, that's very heartening to know, because, we work very closely with several startup companies. And the one thing that, they always realize and understand is that working with the government gives you access to the kind of scale, as well as the ability to understand and work together in a public-private partnership mode that no other institution can provide. But of course, there has to be an understanding on the government side that for many of them to be successful, monetization, commercialization, and scaling will be critical. It's really heartening to know that the Karnataka government is so open to working with the private sector and has also identified specific opportunities as well as sectors where you believe fintechs and startups in general can play a positive role. As we close this session, because I know we're out of time, what's your one message to the private sector when they face these challenges? And I would say there's also a mindset issue of, how do you work? How do you understand, the complex machinery that the government really is? So, what's your one message to the fintech sector today at this Global Fintech Festival? What's the one message you want to share on how this partnership can be successful?
There is a lot of mistrust or lack of confidence between the players, from both government as well as the private sector. My appeal only is that there is enough space for government as well as the private sector to come together and find a win-win situation, right? And then add value to the system. I would just like to add one anecdote to this. A company came, I would not name that company. Sure. The company said, sir, you have data and I do also have data. If I monetize my data on my own, it will get X. And if you do monetize your data alone, it will get maybe Y. But if we both together see, sum of this will be X plus Y. But if we join hands together, which that company is in a navigation sector, and then so that company was saying that the product will be, if we join hands together and make it as a product, then it will become X into Y. It is not X plus Y. So that's the way I would like to project, that there is enough space where it need not conflict. It can always converge. We can always add value to each other, and then build a better systems for the people.
All right, on that note, we should call this session, we should close this session, but I think it is really, really nice to see the willingness as well as the inclination on part of government stakeholders to partner the private sector, because as you said, there is no better win-win than the two sides coming together, working together and balancing innovation as well as regulation and taking advantage of the kind of benefits both sides bring. Thank you so much, Secretary, for your time and for sharing that wonderful project that the Karnataka government's working on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kohli and Shri Ponnuraj, for this part of conversation. And as Ms. Kohli said, there's a beautiful convergence of the public and the private sector, and we can see this convergence on stage as well. So thank you for maneuvering this part of the conversation. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to thank our channel